Hi everyone. For mixed media morsel number 26, we're going to discuss using a stencil, or using stencils in general. While we're talking about it, I'm just going to put a little bit of paint on my page so it can be drying. And I've just got a couple of colors here that it's okay if they mix and blend together. But I've had some people ask about if I could do a video showing about how to use stencils, that they always make a mess, or, that there's just problems. And there are, because, stenciling is not by any means an exact science. So I totally understand, when you say you're having issues with it. It takes a little bit of practice. And I'm just going to give you a few tips that I've learned, as I've been working in mixed media. And, that's about all I can say. It's just things that I've learned. None of what I'm saying is necessarily the only way to do any of it. But through trial and error, I've learned ways to do it that I think might be helpful to you guys. So while this dries, I'm going to show you, show you a couple of those techniques. I'm going to use this paint up here, though, on this address book page. Sorry, my brain stopped for a second there. I wanted to use a little bit of the paint that was in this brush, so I'm just wetting it. Kind of doing a little wash over the whole page. Okay. This is one of those address book pages that I'm altering. Some of you may or may not know, remember when I did a video talking about how I was going to be doing that. But I am altering an address book, an old address book. And so instead of using up my waste paint on index cards or in my composition book of unwasted paint, right now I'm just using it all up on these pages. Not sure yet what I'm going to do with them once I'm finished, but that is what I'm doing. And so you can see it's just excess paint that, just slapping it on to something that just use it up, and it helps to fill up a page that needs a little extra something. I'm just kind of splattering. That was a big wad of paint there, so just kind of splattering that all over this one. And I think I'm going to have fun playing with these pages. I'm having fun now, of course, but I think I'm going to have fun when I get to the adding focal point stages too. They're going to be fun because they're so colorful, and I just love all the color. So, okay. So now that we're covered in paint, I'm going to get more painty, so I'm not even going to bother to wash my hands very much. Okay, so my little page for my morsel is drying. And so I'm going to take some of these other pages that I have used up some excess paint on and show you some of the stenciling techniques I was talking about. First of all, I've got a handful of little stencils here. These came from Walmart. I cut them up. They were not in little pieces like this. I cut them up. But they're plaid stencils. And there were 3 sheets, and they have all of these different designs on them. And so I just cut them into the little sections that they, the little section of different patterns. I cut them apart so that I could use them for small things like these pages or my morsel pages or whatever. And, you can see what size they are. I know it's hard to see them in the the way they are. There we go. Get a little glare, you can see it. Okay. And the ones with paint, of course, you can see. This one has circles, 2 different size circles, or actually 3. And the little one with the flower pattern, which is this one here. So I just cut them all apart because they were just easier to use that way. So I wanted to show you that. It's number 30494 from Plaid. Okay, so, and they were very inexpensive. Like I said, I got them at Walmart, and you could probably find them at Amazon. I'm not sure, but I did get mine at Walmart. Okay, so stenciling. Let's use this because you can see the stencil because of the paint that's left on there from before. There's different things you can use. These are stencil brushes. Okay, this one, of course, being bigger, and this one's smaller, and you would use those for, depending on the size of, you know, whatever the stencil is that you're working with. I'm going to just use the big one just to give you an idea, and I will also use one of these makeup sponges that you probably have seen people using. And you want to start with a dry brush. Okay, let's use some black. Actually, let's use purple. I've got the purple out too. I typically like to use the thicker paints. For stenciling, I feel like it's a little bit easier to use, but you can use the more liquidy craft paints. You just have to be really careful and use less. Just remember with stenciling, less is more, okay? So I'm going to do it with both just to show you that it can be done. You can see that this is thicker, okay? The Liquitex Basics is a like a student grade artist paint, and they're not very expensive. So you can find those at Michael's and, you know, any other place that you get, you know, paints. Okay, this one is more liquidy. But I just want to show you that they can both be used. And with both of them, you still have to not load your brush or your sponge up. When you dip your brush in there and you get some paint on your brush, you want to tap it off, okay? Don't take a full brush full of paint to a stencil, because if you do, it's going to bleed underneath, chances are. Like I said, it's not a perfect exact science, so it's just something you have to play around with and get a feel for it. See how I'm tapping that off over here? And then when you go in, you want to keep your stencil flat on the paper. Don't move it, okay? If you pick up your stencil to check it underneath, you are running the risk of, when you put the stencil back down, what was on the stencil that was kind of around the edges will seep, and it can make your pattern distorted. So just tap it off and then tap it up and down. No side to side movement, just up and down. And you can always do a second layer. If you've used a very little paint, that's great. You can always do a second layer right on top of it to darken it up, okay? So now I'm going to lift it. And it's a pretty good, like if you see it up close, you can see that there's a little bit of bleed where, you know, the squares aren't exactly perfect lines. But it's much better than if I had taken it. We'll use the same paint again. All right, if I take it and put the brush directly into this, load it up, and then and then try to do the stenciling. Let me move it to a clean section so we don't make any smears. You will run the risk of it being too wet. Okay. See, that one doesn't look quite as clean as the other one, at least to me. See if I can hold it still for you. All right. So I'm going to wipe this off. Just so I don't spread it all over the, because it does go under. It does go to that back side. All right. See how scratchy my old rag is? It's scratching the paint right off. Okay. So with the wet paints, it's the same thing. Let me wipe this out of my brush here. See how much paint you still have left in brushes? Don't dunk them in water yet until you wipe them off on something. A lot of paint there that would have gone right in the water and right down the drain. Look at all that paint. Okay. Let's go over here and use the wet paint now. And we're going to do the same thing. We're dipping it in and dipping it out. Okay. You want to take some back off. Okay. I'm still doing the up and down. Hold the stencil down where it's flat. If it's lifting up at all, the paint will go underneath. Okay, so the wet paint is a little bit harder. It's a little bit harder to use. You can see it's a little bit messier. But the more paint that you use off that brush, in other words, the less paint that's on here, like right now there's less paint than there was a minute ago. So the drier the brush gets, in other words, the better your stenciling will be. Okay, now see how much better these look? Okay, then those. These are much crisper because there wasn't as much paint on the brush. Okay, and the same thing, excuse me, the same thing goes with the sponge. Okay, and you, like I said, you can still use the wet craft paint. You just want to tap it back off again. And with a sponge, it kind of soaks up into the sponge, so you have to be careful. But you want to do the same thing, up and down. And with the sponge, you have to press a little because, like I said, it soaks up into the sponge. Sucks it right up. Okay. So see, it still works. And if it's not dark enough for you, you put the stencil right back on the top, line it up, and you can do another layer. That's just about dry because it was so thin. Okay. Just up and down. Oops, my stencil slid a little bit. Okay. So that's another coat on those three. The bottom two here did not get the extra coat. Okay. It just takes time, takes a little bit of, like I said, a practice and getting a feel for it, but it can be done. So now I'm going to show you a couple of other little quick techniques. You can also use modeling paste. You could do a little white on this one. Now this, you can get modeling paste, you know, anywhere arts and crafts supplies are sold. This, I think, came from Amazon. Okay. And I also bought some recently that I got at Tuesday Morning. And these are colored already. They're not white, so I really like that. Really pretty colors. Love that. Okay. So you can use a palette knife, you can use a credit card, anything that's sturdy enough to spread with will work just fine. Okay, let's see here. Let's go with the circles, and let's just put a couple of dots on here. All right, and just dip some up. You can see it's really thick and creamy. Okay. And there's recipes and stuff on YouTube videos about how to make your own too. I mean, you don't have to spend a lot of money on this stuff. And then you want to just scrape it across like that with the edge. beautiful. And it leaves a raised edge. And it takes this a little longer to dry depending on how thickly you put it on. It will take it a little bit longer to dry than the paint. But I really love that. And then you can always paint over the top of this too, and then you'll just see the texture that's left behind. It's really fun. Really fun to use. And then you want to always wash your stencil off or wipe it with a baby wipe as soon as you're done. You can't leave it on like you can paint, because it will harden. Yeah, it does harden. So I'm going to just wipe over it with the baby wipe here. This one's a little wetter. Okay, and then I'm going to dry it off. So I wanted to show you a couple more of those pages. This is one that I just used up a bunch of scraps that were on my desk and just glued them to the address book page. I painted the edge there afterwards, but that's just scraps glued on, okay? Then this one is the same thing, just scraps glued on, but I stenciled where the black dots are. I stenciled. Okay, and then I also did some leftover stamps. Here's a butterfly, here's a flower. So I just want you to see the difference between one that's just collaged, and one that has the additional stenciling. And it's got a little bit of stamping, but you can see how the stenciling really makes everything pop. It just adds another layer. It pushes all of that colorful stuff into the background, and it just has such a unique look now, where this just looks like a mishmash of paper. This is starting to look interesting. And then here's one that you can see these circles here. This is an alcohol technique that I did, just like our morsel number 3, where I did the alcohol on top of the wet paint, the watery paint. And then I stenciled here using up some paint. I stenciled some white dots. And then these are just some leftover black paint that I was dipping a homemade stamp into. So it's just really cool how it can add so much interest. All right, so back to our morsel page. Oh, before I do that, I want to show you too. If you don't have stencils, you can easily make one. This is a packaging. I think yeah, it's that package that these modeling pastes came in from Tuesday morning. I cut a piece of it off the front, and I took just a regular hole punch. Can you see the holes? I don't know if you can see that. There you go. And I'm just using a regular hole punch and punching right in there. Just like that. Just do random holes. They don't have to be lined up in any particular way. You can also cut cut plastic like transparencies, or you can even use like manila file folders, because they're stiff, and you can use those for stencils as well. But you can see how this is just very random, and it'll make an awesome stencil. Yeah, we'll use it on our page today. How about that? I'm going to cut this piece off that's bent, though, because it's going to cause the stencil to stick up away from the page. So I'm going to trim that piece off. Okay, now it lays flatter. So let's use a little bit of white. Here we go. And get another sponge here. Okay, I'm going to use this sponge. This is the same as this one. I've just cut it down. As I let paint dry on it, I just trim them off. So this one's smaller, but it's the same thing. So we'll just put a little bit of this on our morsel page for today. and tapping it off so it's not too thick. Oops. And then there are times like this, see where I went off the edge of the stencil? That's going to leave a little area there that's not a circle. So you got to be really careful. Watch where your sponge is ending up, in other words. See it right there? Now, if that bothers you, you can always take a baby wipe or something and wipe it away. Okay, while it's wet. You have to do it while it's wet. We'll put a couple more down here. Now you can you can do layering with stencils too. Like I can use a different stencil and stencil right over the top of this, but you need to make sure you dry the layers in between if you don't want the colors to blend together. Okay, this is a piece of punchinella, and you use punchinella the same way that you use a stencil. It's just got holes in it. So I'm just going to use this and some dark green. I'm going to dry this up. Okay, and then this is just a piece of mesh, plastic mesh bag. You get oranges or whatever in the grocery store. It's a vinyl, little plastic mesh. And these make great stencils also. I will say that they're easier to use after you've already got a couple of coats of paint on them because they're stiffer. You know, once you do that, they're stiffer. And they're pretty flimsy at first, but if you use it like on your jelly plate or just paint over it and, you know, get it all painty somehow and then press it onto paper and all, and then leave the paint to dry, it will get nice and firm like this because they don't start out quite this stiff. And then I'm going to use this little brush. This is a Crayola brush. It came out of the set of brushes that my purple glue brush that I used came out of. Real inexpensive, like a set of several brushes is like $5 or $6, something like that. And there's several, and they're just really good brushes. They've really held up well, and a couple of them have a little flat end. Even though they're the bristles are kind of long, they work well for stenciling. So I'm going to try to do a little bit of black. Let me see if I can not make a big mess. I'm going to tap a lot of this out. I just wanted to add a little bit of black to this page. So I thought I might do some like maybe in the corners and just tap it through the stencil. It's not really a stencil, but we're using it as one. I love being able to repurpose stuff you can easily find. And like I said, I'm not doing this real heavy black. Just want a little bit of black. Just to give it a little bit of contrast. I got a little bit more on that corner than I did over here, so we'll try to put a little bit more back here. Okay, and I'm going to just leave it where it is, and I'm just going to kind of work around. Just work around the page a little bit. So you can see that it gives the page some more interest. It's a little darker up here than I wanted it. I wanted it all to be more like this, but I think it's okay. And that can easily be fixed just by adding a little white back in. So I can just take some white. We'll go back and do a few more of the circles right back over the top. And you can tone it down a little bit. See? Takes that dark edge. You know, if it gets too dark for you, you can just fix it up. There we go. Put a few in here. We'll be putting something else on this page. I'm not sure what yet, but I'll be putting something there. All right, so this is going to be my background. Got all those layers of paint, and I'm going to use this dragonfly stencil. I don't remember right off which one this is. I will try to remember to put the brand of the stencil in the description of my video. But I think I'm going to use some of this modeling paste. That was the pink one. And I'm going to put a dragonfly on my page using the pink. Okay, so I'm going to put him, let's see, right about here, I guess. Okay, and we'll just scrape the modeling paste across. I like this stencil. It has a lot of plain space where you're not getting modeling paste where you don't want it to be. Okay, just scrape it across. Okay. I left it kind of thick because I wanted it to have a little bit of dimension. Okay, so you can see how that looks. All right, I don't know if you can see the dimension actually, but it's there. It's not extremely thick, but it's good. All right, and then I'm gonna scrape this off and put it back in the jar. But while I'm doing that, I'm gonna put one of my pages underneath, and just let the excess kind of go onto the page, because there's always going to be some that scrapes through the holes while you're cleaning it off. So we'll just make a real thin dragonfly over here. And then we'll just I'm going to scrape some more, just to add more of this color to the page, just to clean it off. Might put a little bit on here too. That kind of adds a little extra, tiny bit. Really cool, huh? So this, of course, will have to dry. I'm going to dry these little areas that were thin that I just scraped on. And then I'm going to take one of these Tim Holtz Small Talk stickers and use it for words at the bottom here of my page. And this one says, "Adventure awaits you." Okay. I'll do another little white border. I think I'll use the thicker one. This is an extra fine point Posca, and this is a fine point, so it's a little bit bigger. This one's almost out, but maybe there's enough in it that I can use it for the border here. We might make a thick line and a thin line, actually. So you can see the different sizes of the Posca pen point there. This is fine, this is extra fine. I may draw around the dragonfly with the white once the modeling paste gets dry. But of course, you guys can do whatever you want on your page. You don't have to have the modeling paste or anything, but just add whatever focal point you like on your page. But try practicing with a little bit of stenciling, and like I said, make your own with a hole punch and a piece of plastic or a piece of cardstock, and you know, it works the same way. And if you use a paper stencil like a cardstock, once you've used some acrylic paint on it several times, it will stiffen up and become pretty sturdy. It'll last you a while. So I hope you guys enjoyed this morsel. I really had fun doing that, and I hope you learned a few tips, maybe feel a little more comfortable about using your stencils or purchasing some if you were maybe thinking you didn't know how to use them, and so you didn't want to, you know, spend any money on them, which I don't blame you. Maybe now, those of you who haven't took the plunge into the world of stencils, maybe you can. I hope so. And I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing all of your stenciling pages on the Facebook group. Those of you who aren't aware, we do have a Facebook group for the Mixed Media Morsels, and the link will be in the description box. See you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.